If your definition of winning is just gaining a few square kilometers, but at the cost of tens of thousands of Russian soldiers, to me that's quite a strange definition of winning. If your definition of winning is terrorizing the Ukrainian people, but only make them more determined to fight back, that's also a strange definition of winning. If your definition of winning is making sure that NATO remains weak, and while at the same time NATO with 32 allies is bigger and stronger than ever, I think that's also a strange definition of winning. I don't think Russia is winning, but what I do think is that we need to keep supporting Ukraine, that we need to make sure that Russia is feeling even more the consequences of this ridiculous war in order to change the calculus of Putin. But I wouldn't say that he's winning.
Welcome to our program, Minister Brekelmans.
Thank you.
Let's begin with the most probably important topic for Ukrainians right now, the state of these US-led negotiations to end the war. Where are we now in these talks and how close are we to a deal?
I think over the last few weeks and months, a lot of effort has been made to make sure that we as allies and partners of Ukraine are aligned. I think a lot of progress has been made, also in terms of the military plans that are part of this overall picture done by the Coalition of the Willing. But what we have seen so far is that there is no willingness on the Russian side to make any serious concessions. So what I think that we should do is make sure that we have done our homework, that we have all the plans ready for when there is a peace agreement, and then what's then needed in order to maintain that peace. But at the same time, we need to increase pressure on Russia. And so far, we have seen that Russia is only terrorizing the Ukrainian people. They are using the terrible winter conditions in order to try to break the will of the Ukrainian people. They will not succeed in that. But we need to make sure that Ukraine is able to retake the initiative in the spring. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that on the one hand, we have all the plans ready, and on the other hand, we increase the pressure on Russia.
Russian dictator Putin is trying to pretend that he is winning this war. This is his public narrative, and there are lots of such narratives in Western social media among some people thinking that Russia is winning this war. Do you think so?
If your definition of winning is just gaining a few square kilometers, but at the cost of tens of thousands of Russian soldiers, to me that's quite a strange definition of winning. If your definition of winning is terrorizing the Ukrainian people, but only make them more determined to fight back, that's also a strange definition of winning. If your definition of winning is making sure that NATO remains weak, and while at the same time NATO with 32 allies is bigger and stronger than ever, I think that's also a strange definition of winning. I don't think Russia is winning, but what I do think is that we need to keep supporting Ukraine, that we need to make sure that Russia is feeling even more the consequences of this ridiculous war in order to change the calculus of Putin. But I wouldn't say that he's winning.
European allies have agreed on this framework on security guarantees for Ukraine. Financial Times reported about some such timeline like 24 hours for Ukrainian response, 48 hours for European-led coalition of the willing response, and 72 hours for European and US-led coalition for military response if Russia violates any kind of future agreements. Can you provide us with any kind of details of this agreed plan, if possible?
I think it's wise to not share those plans in detail. And it's not because we don't want to be transparent towards you or towards your audience, but it's not only a military plan, also for Ukraine, it's a bargaining chip on the table. Because we know that it must be part of any future peace agreement. And if you want to have a peace agreement, then of course Russia also need to accept that. So I don't think it is wise to openly discuss any intermediate plans, because those plans are still work in progress. They also change over time. And we don't want to inform Russia about every internal discussion that we have and every twist and turn that we are taking in this discussion. I think overall, what must be very clear, if there's a peace agreement, there needs to be a strong Ukrainian military that is able to deter further Russian aggression. It needs to be supported by the coalition of the willing, by a group of countries that is willing to help Ukraine. And if Russia at some point still decides to attack, there must be a clear response by as many countries as possible. I think those are the overall principles, and we are working them out in more detail.
It's also covered Dutch military support for Ukraine. How do you see your personal achievements in providing Ukraine with military support during your time in the office?
I'm actually quite proud that over the last year, our support to Ukraine was more than ever. In the years before, we gave around 3 billion, more or less. But last year, when I was Minister of Defense, we gave over 5 billion. And it's not only because of me, of course, it was a government decision, and also Parliament was supporting it. But I think we have succeeded in making sure that Ukraine was always our key priority. And of course, many things are happening in the world. There are many discussions. The attention of the public and the media is sometimes focused on something else. But at every moment in time, we said we need to keep focused on Ukraine. We need to provide Ukraine with more support than before. And also, we need to keep delivering. Because we also see that some countries are making big announcements, but then in the end, they do not actually implement or do what they say. And what the Ukrainians also tell us is your efforts are not only big, but also the results that you achieve are big. And I think that's something that we can be proud of. But of course, we shouldn't be too proud of ourselves. We need to be proud of the Ukrainians. And it's the Ukrainian soldiers that are fighting every day, the Ukrainian people that are now suffering every day, but are still extremely persistent. I admire them very much. So more than being proud myself, it was a great honor to have the opportunity to help the brave Ukrainian military and people.
And final question, and I would appreciate short answer. Should we expect the upcoming new Dutch government also to continue supporting Ukraine?
Yes, very short answer, yes. And what's very good now, we made a coalition agreement for the next 4 years. And that same level of support for Ukraine is there for the next 4 years. So we can not only show and tell Ukraine, our allies, but also signal towards Russia that we are supporting Ukraine today and tomorrow, but also in the longer term. And I think that is very important.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.